It's finally Friday.
It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
All right, welcome back to the Friday Show. I'm Scott Jagow, along with Ray Paulick. Glad you could join us. We're talking today about what happened at the Kentucky Derby and looking forward to the Preakness. Ray, we got it wrong when it came to Always Dreaming. We kind of tossed him as the favorite. I would do it over again because you got to stick to your guns, and the questions that surrounded the favorite at the Kentucky Derby all week long, you have to take that in consideration and be consistent with your handicapping. However, you know, he got better as the week progressed, and the public ended up getting it right for the 5th consecutive Kentucky Derby. Post-time favorite won.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. We talked previously about how you hadn't had 5 consecutive winning Kentucky Derby favorites since the late 1800s. I'm old enough to remember when we went more than 20 years with no winning favorites, from Spectacular Bid to Fusaichi Pegasus, I believe. But I got off Always Dreaming. You got off of him. I thought maybe he was the best horse down in Florida. But then a week before the race, Todd Pletcher makes a change of exercise riders. He changes equipment. That's not the way you want to come into the Kentucky Derby. It's just not. And the horse proved us wrong. This goes to show you what a good trainer Todd Pletcher is. He wasn't afraid to make that decision. Look, I know it's a week to the Derby, but we're going to change exercise riders, and we're going to put some different equipment on them to settle him down more in the morning. And it did the trick, and he's won his 2nd Kentucky Derby.
I talked to Terry Finley from West Point Thoroughbreds, one of the partners on Always Dreaming, and he said, you know, he was really anxious about the way Always Dreaming was performing in the morning early in the week, but then when Todd made the change with the draw reins, things got a lot better. The confidence level in the barn went significantly higher, and then on Saturday they were still concerned that he might freak out with the crowd and everything, but he was cool as a cucumber, very professional. Yep. And Terry was saying, you know, once he saw that, he felt like they're going to have him to beat. And then at the top of the stretch, the question was asked, and he was really the only one in the race that had the answer. And he was the best on that day. Now, you could say that the rail was kind of golden on Saturday, and that might have benefited Always Dreaming. Looking at Lee certainly took the rail path to get 2nd, although that is the horse last week that we touted at, you know, long odds that we thought was going to run big. So we did get something right in that respect. But Todd Pletcher, very classy throughout the whole, you know, all the pressure that was on him. He never sounded defensive, and then he was classy in victory.
That's right. You said Always Dreaming got the golden rail trip, but he also was good enough to take advantage of it. You know, he had the tactical speed. He had the jockey and John Velasquez that knew what to do. And, you know, you talked about Todd Pletcher being classy. This was a big win for Todd and John. They go back, way back as partners. And you had mentioned before that you thought Pletcher needed that 2nd Kentucky Derby win. He had the one with Super Saver, and he said as much after the race. And you could tell that this 2nd one meant a lot to him. The emotions came, and I think it was because it was him and Johnny doing it together. John had won previously with Animal Kingdom and Graham Motion. Todd had won previously with Super Saver and Calvin Burrell, but this was their Derby together, and this was a big one for both of them.
When the odds opened, I expected, with all the questions around Always Dreaming, that he would float up, but he did not. He never floated up,
yeah.
Which to me should have said, you know, the public is going to be right again. Another trend here in the last 6 years is that the winner of the Kentucky Derby has come from one of only 3 prep races. That's Arkansas, Florida, or the Santa Anita Derby. So keep that in mind when we're doing our handicapping for next year. Moving forward, you know, looking at the Preakness, the stats say it's going to be a Derby horse that wins the Preakness, because only 3 of the last 27 Preakness winners were new, that hadn't run in the Derby. However, there is one other stat that's more recent. Of the last 10 Kentucky Derby winners, only 4 of them won the Preakness.
Well, but you're giving me all these numbers. I can tell you that 100% of the people who talk about the Derby are going to be talking about the new shooters. So how can you throw them out?
Right. The
New shooters and tight turns.
Oh, and the tight turns that don't exist. But yeah, we're going to get ready for the media barrage coming into the Preakness. But anyway, what's your assessment of, Always Dreaming going into the Preakness against what looks like about 10 or 11 competitors?
Well, he has tactical speed. That's an advantage. But there's other speed in this race. We've got Royal Mo coming out from the also eligible list for the Kentucky Derby. He was part of the pace in the Santa Anita Derby, along with Battle of Midway. Battle of Midway ran a pretty good race in the Kentucky Derby. He's not coming back. Royal Mo is. So there's some speed, maybe, to go with Always Dreaming. And, if there's a speed duel, it could set up for, who knows, maybe Conquest Mo Money, maybe looking at Lee is improving with each race.
Don't forget about
it's too early to
Gunnevera.
handicap right now.
Don't forget about Gunnevera. Mike Smith is getting on Gunnevera. So, but the Preakness is usually
they tell me he's won a few big races from time to time, yeah. Mike Smith.
But the Preakness is usually won by a horse that's prominent, at least prominent, when they get to the top of the stretch. You got to be pretty close to the lead. Occasionally you'll get an I'll Have Another who made a pretty strong move, made up like 3 lengths or something about the 8th pole, but that's very rare. Usually you've got to be right there. So that plays against deep closers unless they can, make a run earlier. But yeah, I think, Always Dreaming, he ran 22 and change. He was right on the pace in the Derby. That was pretty quick. It slowed down a little bit, but man, he still had a ton left in the tank. So, this race seems like it should set up pretty good for him.
For some of the horses that were in the Derby that didn't run well, Classic Empire, I'm going to look at this like I'd look at any other race. I'm just going to draw a line through it because that track that they raced on was so wet, so sloppy, so miserable. Horses were getting mud thrown back at them. There was a lot of horses that did not run their races in the Kentucky Derby. The good news this coming week is, right now at least, the weather forecast is for sunny skies all week, cloudy skies on Saturday, but only a slight chance of rain on Saturday. So it's going to be a fast track, it looks like, for the Preakness Stakes. I mean, I don't know. I've never seen weather as bad as it was in Louisville leading up to the Derby.
It would not stop raining. I mean, fingers crossed we're going to get good weather in Baltimore. But even, leading up to the Derby, it wouldn't stop raining. And then even on Derby Day, the sun came out in the afternoon. The track was actually upgraded to muddy. And then another deluge. I mean, it just wouldn't stop. So I think we've had our bad spring weather, already. And I think we're going to get a good week in Baltimore. So what do you think? Is Always Dreaming going to win the Preakness? Take the poll on our website, paulickreport.com. Well, we'll have more intense handicapping next week from Baltimore. That's going to do it for this edition of the Friday Show. Thanks for joining us.